All right, what's going on, y'all? Happy New Year's Eve. Hope everybody is having a good one, planning on having a good night, not getting too drunk, all that stuff. Coming up with New Year's resolutions for all the stuff that you're going to do as of tomorrow and all the promises that you make to yourself that you're going to break as of January 2nd. That's normally how those go. Anyway, I figured that since the end of the year, it might be fun to do a little year-end review or a little report card for one Donald John Trump. So all the time I'm always covering stuff that happens daily, but I think it's important to look back on the entire year and just see what's happened so far. So I'm going to try and do this in an interesting way. I am going to judge this based off of what Trump ran on and what he said he wanted to do as president and how he did on the things that he said he was going to accomplish or wanted to accomplish. Not necessarily all my personal opinion. I'm going to do my best to leave my personal opinion out of it. So this one did take a lot of time to research and look up all this stuff. Before I get into it, make sure you do like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, all that stuff. It's totally free, means the world to me. And let's get into Donald Trump's report card. Now, as we all know, Trump aced the cognitive tests, but we'll see how well he does here. So let's start off with immigration, since this is one of Trump's strongest topics. Now, this is something that Trump ran on in 2016, in 2020, and in 2024. This has always been a sticking point for Trump. So, on immigration, according to the Customs and Border Patrol website, border crossings and encounters are significantly down, with November being the lowest month all year. They also report that drug seizures at the border are up, and the amount of drugs that are being stopped from coming into the United States is at an all-time high. So I guess that's good. Number of people that are coming into the country this year is down. The total number of immigrants in the United States was at its highest in January 2025, right when Trump took office. It was at 53.3 million. Now, the number of immigrants who have left the United States this year is about 2.5 million, and that number was updated back in September, so this isn't like the number for the entire year, but this was a combination of forced deportations and also just people leaving of their own volition, okay? So for number of people that they report that they have deported is about 600,000 people so far, and the remaining 1.9 of that 2.5 are people that have just left on their own accord. So Trump ran on, I'm going to do mass deportations, I'm going to lock down the border, I'm going to be, a very strict on border crossings and drugs and all of that stuff, and they have done that. So on this one, I guess you would have to give Trump a good grade. But the one thing I do want to end this on, just because it's kind of funny, is that I looked this up on, one of the things that Trump obviously railed against Biden on all the time was open borders, and he lets all the criminals in and all of this stuff. Biden at his peak was actually averaging about 713 removals per day. Trump is down to 661. So he's actually a little more than 10% less than what Biden was doing in terms of removing people from the country at his peak. And that's kind of embarrassing, since they cut ads with like ICE jumping out of Black Hawk helicopters and invading people's apartment buildings and shit like that. But again, if we're just basing this off of, did Trump do mass deportations and did he lock down the border and was he very tough on drugs? Yes, he said he was going to do that. He has been. So I guess you would have to give him an A on this. Moving on, domestic policy. So Trump ran on slashing the federal government. Trump ran on getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse. He was parading around the country with Elon Musk saying that they were going to do that. And when he got in, one of the first things he did was appoint Elon Musk to be the head of the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. And DOGE got straight to work cutting all kinds of things. Now, the things that they cut were like Meals on Wheels, SNAP, Social Security. They also cut air traffic control. They cut people from nuclear safety officials. They cut things like the National Weather Service. They cut USAID. They cut the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. I could go on and on and on. So they cut a bunch of stuff, which he said he was going to do. He also did massive tax cuts for billionaires, which he said he was going to do. They also cut healthcare, which they still don't have a replacement for it. And ever since Trump his first term, he said, "Well, I'll have a new plan. It'll be there in 2 weeks." They still don't have a plan to replace the ACA, even though the government shutdown was responsible for ending the subsidies that would go to ACA premiums. So everybody's healthcare premiums are going to go up next year. They also made cuts to education, just like public education. It's like a 16% cut to funding levels for public education. Now, at the same time, Trump is giving billions and billions and billions of dollars to ICE. He gave Kristi Noem $170 million in the form of a couple of Gulfstream jets. He signed an executive order, or a couple of executive orders, that basically like allowed for more corruption. He signed an executive order that got rid of regulations on drug price increases. So he basically signed an executive order that said it was okay to increase drugs, as he goes around to rallies and says, "I cut drug prices by 300, 400, and sometimes 500 and 600%. Total bullshit. So he's pardoned countless criminals, all of the January 6 people that he pardoned. He pardoned the president of Honduras, who is a convicted drug trafficker. He convicted CZ, the founder of Binance, who was brought up on financial crimes. He's pardoned a bunch of other white-collar criminals. He gave a $600 million contract to a company that his son Don Jr. sits on the board of. So, yeah, I mean, like, not to mention he's doing the ballroom, in which, you know, like, they're not actually using federal money. They're taking donations from companies and billionaires, but that's also that they can just curry favor with Trump. But as far as like cracking down on waste, fraud, and abuse, giving your son a government contract worth $600 million and like giving money to Kristi Noem and shit like that, I would say that's not really cracking down on waste, fraud, and abuse. And also, they didn't save any money doing this. All of the people that they cut, all the jobs that they cut, all of the agencies that they cut, they didn't save the government any money doing this. So on this, he did slash the federal government. He did do that. But the result of what he said was going to happen by doing that did not come to fruition at all. So, in terms of slashing the government, I guess I would give him an A. In terms of, like, cracking down on waste, fraud, and abuse, absolute F. Total F across the board. This has been the most corrupt administration in the history of the country, and it's not even close. Okay. Moving on to the economy and inflation. So, inflation. Officially, it's about the same as what it was when Biden left office. Right now, it's sitting at about 2.7%. When Biden left office, inflation was about 2.9%. Now, it's important to note that inflation is not the same thing as how much things cost. It's just a measure of, you know, how much things go up year over year. So one of the things that that Trump was very adamant on was bringing down the price of gas. The national average price of gas right now is about $2.83 per gallon. And at the end of Biden's term, it was about $3.30 per gallon. So it has come down almost 50 cents per gallon. But I also think it's important to note that gas prices were already coming down under Joe Biden, because the year before that, gas price averages were like $3.53 per gallon. So $3.53 down to $3.30, now down to $2.83. That is one of the things that Trump ran on. So he did get lower gas prices, I guess. But like, the president really doesn't have that much to do with the price of gas, as oil is like a globally traded commodity. Anyway, but as far as energy goes, the whole rest of the energy sector is a mess. All right. So price of electricity is absolutely soaring all over the country. And I know this firsthand because I sell solar for a living. So I see this in all different states. Like, I've done this in North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, Georgia, Texas, Illinois, Missouri, Kansas, California, you name it. I've been there. Everywhere the price of energy is going up rapidly. Now, this is in part due to a couple of things. One, the price of liquid natural gas is actually up. about 50% since this time last year. Now, some of that has to do with the weather being very cold in certain places. A lot of that has to do with Trump increasing exports of liquefied natural gas to places like Europe. So when we send out a bunch of our natural gas to the European Union, that means that there's less supply here and the demand here is still high, so the prices go up. The other thing that's crazy is the AI boom, right? So AI is a massive consumer of energy, and these data centers just chew through tons of electricity for a couple of reasons. One, the actual the actual servers, the data servers, they take a lot of energy to compute. It also takes just under a metric fuck ton of energy to cool these buildings because they have to be cool enough that they're operational for these machines to work. And so between the power needed for compute and the power needed to cool the buildings, it eats up a lot of energy. Now, current US AI energy consumption is about 5% of the total energy demand for the country. They actually expect that to double before the end of the decade. They expect it to go from 5% to at least 10% before 2030, which means that the price of energy is going to fucking skyrocket. And I got news for you. We're not going to be able to meet that demand with clean, beautiful coal. Okay, we're going to have to invest a lot more into renewable energy, wind, solar, nuclear. They're going to have to do something to meet that demand because it's only going to increase over time. All right. Price of other consumer goods, like price of beef, is up. It was on average $5.71 per pound last year in 2024. This year it's $6.63 per pound on average. This constitutes about a 16% increase year over year. Other foods have risen significantly. Things like coffee is up dramatically. It's like up 41% year over year. Other fruits and vegetables, things that we don't grow here, things like bananas and other exotic fruits, stuff like that, we don't grow them here. The cost of those have gone up. I think the only thing that's really gone down is the price of eggs, but that also has nothing to do with Trump. That was because there was this massive avian flu outbreak in 2024 and into early 2025, and so they had to cull a whole lot of hens. And then now that they've got that under control, the price of eggs have come back down. But aside from eggs and gas, it's pretty much been everything's gotten more expensive, and also a lot of that is because of the tariffs. So, well, I mean, Trump said he was going to do tariffs. He did the tariffs. He said that it was going to make the United States a lot of money. That hasn't really happened either. Pretty much it ends up being a tax on the consumer. That's why the price of a lot of the things that we cannot make here have gone up. We don't grow coffee in the United States unless you're talking about like Hawaii, you know? Like we don't grow certain things in the United States. We don't grow vanilla here, you know? So a lot of these things have gotten more expensive because of the tariffs. All right. Now on jobs. The jobs economy is an absolute mess, like just a total disaster. There's really no good way to spin this. So the total number of federal jobs that they've cut so far is they cut 168,000 federal jobs since September. And then the private sector has gained 121,000 jobs in that same time period. So if you're doing the math with me, that's a net job loss of 47,000 jobs. Okay. That's not good. That's not good. Just because you cut federal jobs and increase slightly private sector jobs, that doesn't make it better. Okay. It actually makes it worse. Now, the Republicans want to blame the Democrats on the job loss in the private sector as well. They're trying to blame the shutdown on the private sector losing as many as 62,000 jobs. Obviously, this is not the Democrats' fault. The Republicans are the one that shut the government down over not wanting to extend premiums for or extend subsidies for ACA premiums. So this has been an absolute disaster. It says since August, the private sector has added 225,000 jobs for total non-farm payroll growth. The average monthly job gain has been about somewhere between 17,000 and 32,000 jobs per month in the second half of the year, but that's been a sharp decrease from the first half of the year. And just for comparison, I want to let everybody know, Joe Biden, I mean, like, because obviously Trump ran against Biden. He was talking about how awful Biden was for the economy and everything like that. Joe Biden, during his 4 years, added over 16 million jobs, okay? Now, a lot of those were because of, the rebound after COVID, but a lot of that also had to do with policy that, Trump did, like Biden did, like the American Rescue Plan and the Inflation Reduction Act and the CHIPS Act, and all of those things added a lot of jobs to the economy, and he averaged over 330,000 jobs added per month for his 48 months in the White House. Trump right now is almost losing jobs. It's pitiful. He's at like a tenth if we're being generous. He's adding like a tenth of the number of jobs that Biden did, and they're also losing manufacturing jobs, okay? Biden onshored over 800,000 manufacturing jobs. Trump is losing currently, I gotta find it here. Let's see, manufacturing jobs, total losses around 63,000 jobs since the start of the year. So on jobs, absolute F across the board. And also the other thing too is that like unemployment is up. The labor market is weak. There aren't as many people who are asking people to come work because of the fact that like they're unsure about the future of the business because of things like tariffs. So across the board on jobs, on the economy, Trump has been a complete disaster. Now moving on to foreign policy, he said that he was going to stop the war in Ukraine on day one. Obviously, that didn't happen. He did not stop the war in Ukraine on day one. He also used to campaign on how we got to get out of all these stupid wars, and people around him have talked about how Trump doesn't like war, and he's a peace president, and he's been like, just, he's been like practically begging to get the Nobel Peace Prize. Trump has given billions of dollars to Israel in the form of like money and weapons so that they can commit a genocide in in Gaza. He gave $40 billion to Argentina to bail out their government after the tariffs. And so like he screwed over American farmers by doing tariffs because China wouldn't buy American soybeans. Argentina's government is a mess. Their economy is failing. Trump gives them $40 billion to bail them out. And who does China go to buy their soybeans from? They go to Argentina. So kind of double whammy there on the fail front. As far as being a peace president, Trump has been bombing Venezuela, or, boats off the coast of Venezuela, seizing Venezuelan oil tankers. He's bombed Iran. He's bombed Somalia. He's bombed Syria. He's bombed Yemen. So, like, not a peace president at all. There are few countries in the world that Trump has not pissed off and or actively, like, taken military action against. He's threatened to bomb Colombia. He's threatened to bomb Mexico over, like, the drug cartels. And, like, they wanted to categorize cartels as, like, a terrorist organization. He's been very deferential to our adversaries like Vladimir Putin. And at the same time, he's been very adversarial with our allies, people like, the Ukrainian president, Volodymyr Zelensky, or the Canadian prime minister. Like, he was joking about making Canada the 51st state and calling Justin Trudeau Governor Trudeau. Okay, so he's been joking about like taking the Panama Canal. Basically, he's like said he wanted to take the Panama Canal back from Panama. He's quipped about buying Greenland for national security purposes, even though Greenland belongs to Denmark and it's not about national security. They want it because of access to the Arctic and a bunch of minerals that are there. We're still in Iraq. We're still in Syria. He's increased the military budget to over $1 trillion, which I guess he did say that he would do. But all of the other stuff, bombing countries, warmongering with countries, trying to start shit, totally unexcusable. On this one, I'd say Trump also gets an F. And then lastly, just the voters' overall opinion of Trump. So I got this from a recent poll from YouGov, and he's underwater on literally everything. Literally everything, okay? So his overall approval rating I've seen so far is at like 36%, 37%. It's horrible, horrible for a first term, or for a first year of the president. Like, your first year as president is usually when your approval rating's the highest, right? They call it like the honeymoon phase or whatever, and you have a lot of political capital and you can get a lot of stuff done. And Trump has used that political capital to just fuck everything up. So this is net approval of U.S. adults on Trump's handlings of the following issues. Obviously, his worst is the Epstein files. He's negative 35. Inflation and prices, he's negative 30. On healthcare, he's negative 24. On taxes and government spending, he's negative 19. On jobs and the economy, he's negative 17. On his job as a president, he's negative 13. And his best issue on immigration, he's still negative 5. So if we're going to recap, and again, I'm trying not to be partisan here, but if we're going to recap, based on what he said he was going to do and what the administration has done so far and what they've accomplished on immigrations, on mass deportations, I give them an A. On cutting the government to the bone, I'd give them an A. They fucked everything up in record time. Doesn't mean that what they did was good. On getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse, F. They've completely allowed like maximum waste, fraud, and abuse, maximum corruption. They haven't saved the money that they said they were going to. On inflation, Trump said that he was going to have zero inflation. That hasn't happened. The tariffs have exploded prices for many, many, many things that people buy every single day. So on that, I would say an F. On jobs, I think the data, like, you can't fake this stuff. This stuff is coming from like government websites. A lot of this stuff I got from like the White House website too. On jobs, he gets an F. He's created like a tenth of the jobs that Joe Biden did, and on a monthly basis. And just because they're cutting government sector jobs doesn't mean that it's good, right? Like, that's still people without work. So that's not good. The GDP growth has slowed. It's lower. On foreign policy, like I said, absolute F. If I'm only going off of him saying, well, I was going to end the war on Ukraine on day one, he didn't do that. All the other stuff is just like, it's war crimes. It's inexcusable. You can't bomb countries that don't attack you. It's offensive in nature. And then, like I said, on just his polling on several different issues and his overall job approval, again, this is not me. This is a YouGov poll, but you can look up a bunch of different polls. Trump gets a fucking F. He has done nothing but go downhill since he took over. And yeah, that's what I got for you. So make of that what you will. Let me know if you thought it was fair. Like and subscribe. Hope everybody has a great night, and I'll see you guys in 2026. Peace.